Okay, sure. Eddie, can you give us an update on Hoops and how he's recovering from his injury and if he'll be available?
Yeah, no, slowly. He wasn't able to train today, so we'll need to make a medical assessment of him over the weekend and see whether he can participate in the game or not.
So it doesn't sound too likely at this stage if he's still unable to train?
Well, we've still got a week to go, and calf injuries, you tend to be more careful with their rehab than other injuries. So the medical staff have been pretty careful with him, but we'll assess it on the weekend and then make a decision from there.
And is Andrew Kellaway fit as well for selection?
Yes, he is. Yes.
Are you considering him as a fullback?
He's definitely in contention for fullback, yes.
Eddie, what do you, there's no Tom Wright, what do you like from the other candidates there to fill the 15 position? Andrew Kellaway, Jordan Petaia, and we conceivably see even a Carter Gordon push for that?
Well, we need to improve the team. We're looking to improve the team. We haven't been good enough in the first two games. So I'm still searching for what our best team is. That's quite obvious. I've only had the players for a short period of time, and I need to find out what our best combination is. So Kellaway and Petaia are definitely options at 15, and both have trained there this week.
And does the same principle apply? Obviously, it's a shorter, smaller squad than the last couple, even though there's been a lot of players in that rehab list. Now there's not so many. Pete Samu's not in the squad, but Fraser McWright, Michael Hooper, are they your genuine candidates at 7? And because it's smaller, does that just mean you want to see Fraser? You want to see how he can push?
Well, I came into the job with the intention of getting the team ready for the World Cup. Given the short period of time, so that's always been the intention. These games, as important as they are, and certainly against New Zealand in the Bledisloe Cup, we treat it with the utmost importance. I've got to find out who the best 33 is for Australia, and this is just part of the process, mate.
And recently, and even Tate McDermott yesterday said that there's still some teething issues. Everyone's getting up to speed. There were some comments earlier in the week whether or not the Wallabies fully know what the attacking and the defensive principles are at the breakdown. Is everyone aligned around how they approach the breakdown at the moment?
No, we're not, and that's part of the issues we've got at the moment. But in time, we will.
Is it just a coaching issue or just a time issue regarding everyone's come together pretty quickly?
Well, it's an understanding issue, mate. Understanding what we need, what decisions need to be made by the players, how much is a framework and how much is the decision making of the players, and we're working out the right balance for the team. It's a really good question.
So just on those players coming back from injury, you had Taniela get through 40 minutes for Australia last week. How have you sort of made his performance and him tracking back into the squad from that Australia experience?
Well, he hasn't been able to train until today. He came back a little bit crook. I think, maybe some of the native Tongan food got to him. I'm not sure. He came back a little bit unwell, but he's back training today, and if he can get through some good training early in the week, then he may be available for selection.
And just on the All Blacks, and without giving too much of the game plan away, what's the sort of non-negotiables to trying to shut down, particularly their attack, when you saw how damaging they can be, particularly against the Springboks?
Yeah, well, we're not too worried about the New Zealand at that stage, but as Christy said, we've got a lot of things to work out ourselves. We're trying to work out our best game plan, but like any team, and New Zealand have approached this season a little bit differently than they normally would. In a World Cup year, they tend to have a measured build-up, and it looks like they're all guns firing at the moment. And our aim is to put them under pressure early in the game. Put them under pressure and see how they cope with pressure on them, because they haven't had it as yet. So there's opportunities in attack and defence to put them under pressure.
I guess being back in sort of Bledisloe build, first one back for you since I think retaining the Bledisloe, well, at least 2 decades. What does it mean to sort of prepare for the Kiwis again and kind of get back to this? Was one of the biggest rivalries in world rugby.
Yeah, no, it's obviously a massive game we're looking forward to. There's nothing better than coaching New Zealand. If you looked at Australia at the moment, probably no one outside our immediate squad thinks we've got a chance of winning, which sometimes can drive a bit more closeness within the team, a bit more purpose about what we're doing. And, we're looking forward to the challenge of playing against a very good New Zealand team.
It's kind of set up perfectly, Eddie, isn't it? Like, England in the Ashes, they're 2-0 down, they could level it up to make it 2-2. You kind of draw inspiration from that, and you're going to the MCG, no better place to make a statement in the world.
I don't get any inspiration from English cricket.
Just building that the underdog mentality, generally brings the best out of Australian teams. You've seen in the past. Do you kind of look to harness that and build up to this Test match?
Well, in this situation, we need to, because we are the underdogs. But generally speaking, we want to be a team that can cope with any sort of tag that gets put on the team, whether it be favourites or underdogs. You just don't want to be a team that fronts up when you're underdogs. But in this situation this week, we're massive underdogs. And that creates an opportunity for us, because we know if we can put pressure on a team that's labelled as red-hot favourites, then sometimes that pressure can turn into increased pressure on them and stress within the team, and that's our aim, mate.
Eddie, if I could just follow up a bit on what Christy was suggesting around comments around the coaching. I think it was Laurie Fisher on the Raw podcast. He was quite specific, I think, about Brett Hodgson, and he's not coached rugby before or played rugby. Can you talk about, do you feel like there's any risk going in with someone without that kind of level of experience on the coaching staff responsible for defence, or do you find he's finding his way quickly, or do you have kind of a view on that?
Well, Laurie's a member of the Australian A staff, so I find those comments inappropriate.
Okay, but then on Brett, do you find like is it a risk going in with someone who hasn't had the kind of rugby experience at that level?
Well, I think, our whole situation's a risk and also an opportunity. I've got no doubt we're not as clear about how we want to play as we want to be. But I don't... The only problem I see with that is that we're not performing as we'd like to perform. But in a build-up to a World Cup, these sort of teething problems are sometimes the best problems to have, and sometimes you find out more about your team in these situations than you do when you think things are going along swimmingly. And they're not going along swimmingly, and all the comments Laurie's made, he's a smart coach, and he did a great job with the defence for Australia A. So we can take good consolation from that if we need someone to help us, we can use him.
Thank you.
Eddie, Nick White, Quade Cooper have been your halves, and Quade's come back from injury, Samu's come back from injury. Are you confident there's enough threat there with pace? Whitey's 32, 33, Quade's 35. Is there enough threat there around the ruck, or do you, someone like a Tate McDermott, allow for a bit more speed and potential threat, or a Ryan Lonergan?
Well, I think there's 2 points there, Christy. Firstly, we've got a number of players coming back from long-term injuries. And we know those players, as much as we like them to be at their best now, they're not going to be their best until the World Cup. And we've got a plan in place to get each player back to their best. So this is part of the process. So we don't know where Quade's going to end up. He's still 4 games into returning from Achilles tendon. Samu Karevi's, I think, 3 or 4 games back from an ACL, and they're serious injuries. So with better exposure to quality training and rugby training over the next period of time, they're going to get a lot sharper. So your comment about pace may be relevant, may not be relevant.
Last couple online, please, guys, if there's anything else. You happy? Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Perhaps just Eddie, is that should fans, and I dare say you don't really care what the fans have to say, or even the media.
I do care. Don't put words in my mouth, please. Please
no
don't
worries.
put words in my mouth.
I won't do. Do you think that people should give those guys a bit more leeway at the moment because they are coming back to their best and they need to have minutes under their belts before a World Cup campaign.
Well, that would appear to be the obvious, mate. So, I'm happy to talk to those fans face to face, if so be. Let's have a fan forum. Happy to answer it. But, anyone who's coming back from a long-term injury needs time. That's the most obvious and the most sensible way to look at any player. And particularly, from a serious injuries like Achilles tendon and ACL, they need time to train. They need time to get their feeling of the game back, their timing of the game back. And as I said, I've got no doubt they'll be at the best for the World Cup.